Happy early new year from us at Geek Variants. Stay safe. Remember to call a friend if you don't feel well enough to drive. But again, you're watching a Star Wars review on New Year's Eve. So I'm just going to hazard a guess. I don't think you're that kind of vigil. Let's talk about the thing that I think they did wrong in this episode, but all the other great things that happened in this episode after this. All right, guys, Richard back with Geek Variants, cover all things Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, anime, gaming, Star Wars, and more. This time, Star Wars Skeleton Crew episode 6, Zero Friends. Again, and Zero Friends is in reference to all the infighting that happened throughout this episode. And one of the things that happened during the infighting that I think wasn't well enough written or well enough built up, and it's probably my only critique that we genuinely have going into this series or has happened throughout the series. Everything else I've been fairly happy with is that KB being built up to be this bionic individual, I don't think was fairly addressed well enough in the writing. I think the fact that I thought she was just someone who had cool goggles throughout, like, did I miss something? Was I not privy to some bit of information that was mentioned earlier on, like, say, episode 1 or episode 2? Because for all my understanding throughout the series, is she just had cool goggles to help her with vision, and she was excessively smart. Nowhere in my mind did I think, hey, she needs to be part bionic and she needs to have her, her oscillators changed out every so often, or she dies. Like, this is a kid's show, and I understand there's going to be some adult elements that need to be better fleshed out. I think that would be one of them. Everything else throughout the series has been great. The storytelling, fantastic. The way the child actors are portraying everything, basically impeccable. And of course, Jude Law as Silvo has delivered in spades. He said he would, and he has, in my mind, delivered throughout the series. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. But let's break into the actual review of like what happened throughout this episode. We can figure out why in the world my name is now the Mudcrab God. And just for all intents and purposes, our episode starts off with our kids sliding down what looks to be like the most amazing and most exciting tunnel slide, I think, in the history of existence. They were sliding for what appeared to be a good maybe 2-3 minutes of just full on fun. But again, nothing's really fun when you don't know exactly where you're going to end up as the end destination. Because sliding is fun for a while, but then after that, you'll be like, huh, hopefully I don't hit something very hard on the way down. Lucky for our main characters, no, just landed on a nice little bed of ice. Everyone was nice and comfortable. It had some snow on top. Everything was fine, except for the kids who were a little rattled because of the situation. Wim once again has fully announced that he has zero idea on who to trust or how to trust people because, let's be honest, every time he's picked who a good guy is, it hasn't panned out. Even in this episode, he admits, hey, the people that even I trusted were definitely the wrong characters, because as the group is kind of hashing it out, KB and Fern finally have their fight because KB is just sick and tired of Fern not acknowledging the fact that she is, in fact, kind of held back. She can only go so far as her batteries can go. She has been running around from planet to planet, from disaster to disaster, without any maintenance, any work, or anything being acknowledged about their friendship whatsoever. And she's just a little sick and tired of it. But again, they're kids. They don't know how to address this. So they just kind of have this awkward moment where Fern's like, hey, we're going to go climb up that ladder. We're going to get to the ship. Everything will be good. KB is like, nope, I'm out. I'm gonna go with Wim because Wim found some like talking crabs that I thought were absolutely adorable. They seem fun, they seem simple. They remind me of the seagulls from Finding Nemo. They were simple creatures, but they weren't trying to eat me, or so I thought. And it turns out I was entirely right about the analogy, but not about how the situation was going to play out. Neal, in a shocking twist, decides to do the physical activity and try and climb the ladder with Fern. So we kind of had like a Scooby Doo group breakup right now. Everyone's just heading a separate way. One to climb, and one to go follow our new crab overlords and see where that goes. As everyone is climbing, Fern is kind of having some second thoughts, and Neal is all of a sudden team MVP. He's having the tough conversation. He is the person that is just broaching every single tough moment. Like, hey, Fern, not everyone is built like you are. I don't have long legs like you are. I'm more trunk than person. I don't have the same limb size. I don't have the physical capacity. I have a different body mass. We're built entirely different. Therefore, we cannot always do the same thing. I understand the gung ho spirit can kind of help overcome certain things, but at a certain point, sometimes physical letdowns just happen and you can't really overcome them. And Fern, hearing this from Neal, the person who's usually basically the doormat of the group, kind of has a realization that maybe she has just been a little bit hard on KB and pushing her as hard as she possibly can without actually checking in on her friend. So that was a huge moment for Neal. And then we go back to Wim and KB, who Wim now has to go ahead and patch together. And forgive me if I butcher this absolute oscillator that needs to be reestablished inside the back of KB's dome. If that oscillator is not fixed, she dies. Kind of high stakes considering he has no mechanical aptitude. He's a little whimsical, and he had no idea what even an oscillator is from jump. He was basically trying to fix things on a whim, unintended. But luckily for everybody, he's able to pull through, and then they continue to follow their new crab overlord. As everything is panning out with their new crabs, they end up running into the largest crab I have ever seen in the history of existence. That thing was a small hill able to move around, and it turns out that the little crabs were leading them there so that they could all turn around and have a meal of children. Fantastic, right? The worst case scenario for our heroes, completely misjudged them in all senses of the word. As that is starting to panic and the kids are starting to run around, we have Fern and Neal who now realize that their ship is being grabbed and going to be hauled off to the junkyard to be just absolutely demolished. And then they decide to do the craziest thing I think I've seen. Fern tied a rope to herself, which she attached to Neal. She has been helping haul him up because she had the realization, hey, I'm stronger than you. I can help you. Correct assessment, correct judgment call, huge win for the group. But then they decide to play that insane game that everyone was playing, Rope Buddy, where you basically jump from area to area and you guys kind of pull each other like a lever system. And it ruined a lot of friendships for 2024. Would not recommend that game. But they managed to both jump in sync to land on top of one of the scrap ships and then manage to pilot it so that they're able to land in, save their friends, and get out of that situation in absolute madness. But unfortunately, with the crab grabbed a rock, yeeted that thing, destroyed one of the ships off to the side, and we had four moving in perfect tandem. So now we're off kilter. So we have everything crashing. Our ship lands directly in front of the scrap machine eater. And if you saw robots, it was basically one of those things that just grabs junk, pulls it in, and eats it. Grabs junk, pulls it in, and eats it, and just destroys and demolishes metal like it's nobody's business. Their ship is directly in the line of sight of that. So the kids go panic, and then they all act in perfect unison. KB's able to get the ship to start. We have Neal as our guide. We have the person navigation for Fern, and then we have Wim on guns. Everything is going beautifully for everybody until they have to realize that the thing has got its claw directly into their ship. So they hit the one button that they were told never ever to touch, called the hull demolition button, which basically acted as a shed skin. It turned out there was a ship inside of the ship and that they were just peeling off the outer layers. The outer layers were grabbed, kind of like how if you cut like a worm in half, both halves will then move on as long as they're not devoured and then become a whole separate thing. The ship just shed its skin, or like a lizard shedding its tail, and boom, off out of there. No issues for anybody, and our heroes are off to live and fight another day. Well, Silva was managed to con his way into surviving Brutus's terrible judgment call because he just wants to send people off in the airlock because Brutus is a great first mate. Terrible villain as far as I'm concerned. He just looks like someone in a furry costume, and no offense, even in a kid show, not really intimidating. I thought we'd get more like Underworld style. No, this is more Muppet style. I'm Brent for Geek Variants. Be sure the lovely red subscribe button greatly helps the channel out. Golden logo below or the red logo at the bottom that says subscribe. I'm Brent for Geek Variants. Happy New Year. Stay safe. We'll see you in the next one.